and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup. And you know how people sometimes complain I spend the entire show pushing my hair behind my ears?
No.
Well, they do, and they do to me. And I keep trying to remember to bring in bobby pins, but I keep forgetting them. So today, paper clips.
Any port in a storm.
Exactly.
We have a lot of serious news.
We
That's
do.
what we're trying to leaven up because Africa is turning into a disaster.
Horrible.
Starting with Uganda, where the president there has declared, used the word war on gays, and will sign the draconian anti-gay law there.
We had held out hope that he might continue to oppose it, but no. And there have been more mob attacks on gay people, gay men, in fact, in Nigeria. They're increasing there, and the law, of course, there is already in place.
And everybody's getting into the act. The president of Gambia wants us exterminated like mosquitoes. These are the words that he used.
Yeah. Now, better news in the United States this week. Virginia, just after we finished taping last week, a federal judge struck down the ban on same-sex marriage there.
I can go back. Indiana now cannot vote in a referendum on whether same-sex marriage to ban same-sex marriage in their constitution until at least 2016.
Also good news, and some small good news from Kansas, where at first we thought it was a disaster because the House passed one of these anti-gay religious exemption bills, worse than Russia probably. But then what happened, the Republican head of the Senate standing up and saying, no, we're not going to do that.
There's a growing movement in Idaho for their non-discrimination bill.
Growing demonstrations there. And there's been progress for a transgender woman in Texas on her long case to get survivor benefits after her husband's death.
We told you about that horrible arson fire in Seattle, where disaster was averted, but they have arrested a suspect in that case, and he was ready to go after someone else with a gun.
He sounds like the president of Gambia, actually. And back in Russia, in Sochi, a couple of activist events this week, not from the athletes, of course, or the spectators, but Vladimir Luxuria, a longstanding Italian transgender activist, showed up and was detained twice for speaking out for LGBT rights, as were some members of Pussy Riot.
The actor Ellen Page, of Juno fame and many other films, has come out publicly, and we're going to have the first out lesbian or gay contestant on American Idol.
You may say to yourselves, but what about Clay Aiken or Adam Lambert? They came out after they were on the show. This is someone who's out.
It's like Michael Sam coming out beforehand.
Exactly, while the audience is voting. And Andy is going to review a couple of new plays, one on 9/11 and Carol Churchill's latest, Love and Information.
Well, the information coming out of Africa is really horrendous.
Yes.
So this Uganda, for years you heard about the Kill the Gays bill. Well, so it was reduced to draconian sentences for gay people.
Lock up the gays bill.
And anybody who helps us.
Yeah.
I mean, you can first of all, Uganda already had a life sentence in prison if you engaged in homosexual activity before all this started. But now it's like sexual touching can be 7 years to life. 3 years.
Do it twice and you go for life.
3 years for not turning in someone who violates the law. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And the West was really pushing, don't do this.
Yeah.
This is, terrible.
And we thought the president, Museveni, was a reasonable guy who was standing in the way of this bill, finding ways to maneuver around it, hold it up, not get it passed. And then the parliament, without a quorum, under the leadership of his opponent, supposedly in the next presidential race, went ahead and passed it. And he turns out to care more about his political future than anything else, and announced to his party conference
Well, let's hear what he has to say about it.
He would sign the bill.
If the authorities here give me their signed statements, my historical job is finished. I will sign the bill. Then we shall have a war with the homosexual lobby in the world, but backed by these people, and you, we go back to the world.
For 20 years or more. There's no downside politically, domestically.
A great upside, evidently. This is what he has decided to do to ensure his reelection.
So the United States says, by the way, this is the first, these laws, all these anti-gay laws are rooted in British colonialism. But
yes.
This one has a twist because for the first time it covers lesbians. The British buggery laws did not cover lesbians. You know, the old quote from Queen Victoria, women don't do such things. One of the ministers in Uganda said, we're tolerant, we're not slaughtering them. Now the United States says...
Well, maybe not the government, but when we get to Nigeria, we will see that the government doesn't have to slaughter them,
Right.
because once you pass a law like this, the mobs will take over and slaughter people. We already had David Kato murdered in Uganda a couple of years ago.
And there have been attacks in Uganda as well.
Yeah.
Obama calls this an affront, says the U.S. will review relations. Susan Rice warned Museveni prior to his signing it, sat down and talked
to him repeatedly.
Yes, but to no avail.
Now, Frank Mugisha, who runs SMUG, Sexual Minorities of Uganda, which I always thought was a cute
Unfortunate acronym.
These days, yes. But what he says is, here's what we're going to do. We're going to attack the bill legally. We're going to go to court against this. Now, that seems just unbelievable that given the fact that the president of the country is standing up and saying we're going to have a war on the homosexual lobby worldwide, that they could get anywhere in court. But that's his preferred way of addressing this. Right. Which certainly makes some sense, and I suppose that could be a way out of it. If the courts say you can't do this, that would give the politicians an excuse not to pursue it.
And again, the other thing that Museveni said, the president of Uganda, was, I'm waiting for scientific evidence that this is genetic. And if it's genetic, I'm not going to sign it because they can't help themselves. They're just sick. So his health ministry prepared this long document, quackery, but with science mixed in.
Yes.
And whatever they said, he still went ahead and signed the bill.
So things are really ugly in Uganda, where, of course, they drove out millions of people years ago under Idi Amin, and where the wife of the president distributes comic books about the evil monsters who are Jews. Anti-Semitism is as bad as homophobia.
Uganda is an 85% Christian country. Half the Christians are Catholics, half a lot of Anglicans, some Pentecostals as well.
And where U.S. evangelicals went over to seed this attitude of kill the gays.
The Anglicans are very evangelical over there.
Absolutely.
Now, Nigeria is a mix of Muslim and Christian, and they already have this horrible law there. So what are the developments this week?
In the capital of Abuja, a mob of 40 people dragged 14 men from their homes. Not necessarily gay men, just single men that they decided might be gay.
This was actually in a village called Gishri, which is just outside the capital, a little peaceful village. But they've gotten the message that gays are the demons. But here's the other thing that they've gotten the message about and why this is such a witch hunt. So they went to the homes, they were beating them with sticks with nails on them right in front of the police, nobody doing anything. And finally they said, we're going to torch their homes. And they pour gasoline on the homes. And this all happened. And finally a woman said, you only want to burn their houses down because you've already robbed their houses. That's why you're doing this. You robbed their houses of their television things and you're covering up your crimes. She stopped them from doing that.
Wow.
Yes.
But meanwhile, they hauled them off to the police station, and the police beat them up.
The Nigerian gay leader Bisi Alimi is calling on the world to come to their defense. What the hell do we do?
Well, there is a Nigerian Day of Action worldwide on March 7th. So get out a pen and paper. This is what you need to do. If you are in New York on March 7th, between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., we will go to the Nigerian mission to the UN. In New York, we have missions to the UN from every country. This is at 828 2nd Avenue at 45th Street. That's 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on March 7th, 2nd Avenue and 45th Street at the Nigerian Mission.
How do we find out about actions all over the world?
Give me 1 second. There will also be a candlelight vigil at the LGBT Center that evening. I'd rather go to the Nigerian Mission. I want to stone them is what I want to do.
No violence.
I take
no
that.
Violence. Right.
It's just a visceral impulse. It's not what I will be doing.
The question is, what do we do? Because the more the West complains, the more resolve they have that they're doing the right thing.
Well, this is why Frank Mugisha in Uganda says we're going to court. We don't necessarily want interference from the West, but we must, look, there's always this debate about what we do. And I think it is incumbent upon us to speak up about the fact that this is unacceptable in world human rights terms.
Yes.
And if we don't, then what do they say? Everybody agrees with us?
Well, I'll tell you what they say in Gambia. The president there, President Jama.
And if you want to know about Nigeria Day of Action actions in your place, look on Facebook. It's all over there.
Okay. In Gambia, the president called us vermin. We will fight these vermins called homosexuals or gays the same way we're fighting malaria-causing mosquitoes, if not more aggressively. This was in his speech celebrating Gambia's 49th year of independence from Britain, which gave. So he said he won't stand for aid conditioned on treating gay people decently. As far as I'm concerned, LGBT can only stand for leprosy, gonorrhea, bacteria, and tuberculosis, all of which are detrimental to human existence. Oh my God. What are you supposed to say to that?
Exactly.
I'm not done with Africa. You want to talk about Cameroon?
Sure. A gay activist there was arrested because a guy who'd been arrested as a thief was asked to supply names of gay people, and he gave the cops a list, and so now they are out arresting people on this list.
All right.
And here's an interesting point. In August 5th and 6th, there is supposed to be a U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. That could be the opportunity for some real action and some real pressure.
And Peter Tatchell has raised this at Commonwealth meetings because a lot of these nations are members of the British Commonwealth.
Absolutely should be making progress there.
Where are we done with Africa?
Yes.
Well, and speaking of England, back in England, the Church of England has ruled out special services of blessings for married same-sex couples. We have them in the U.S. Episcopal Church. But this is a church, of course, that blesses animals,
regularly.
And clergy are forbidden to enter into same-sex marriages, which, by the way, come into effect in England and Wales on March 29th.
And Scotland.
Well, Scotland picked the same date?
I think so.
They did it.
Yeah.
They passed it separately.
Yeah. No, I think they're coordinated all.
So the union is holding for the moment.
Now, wasn't the church allowing its clergy to enter into civil partnerships?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
But this is about religion.
I understand. The Dominican Republic ambassador to the Vatican wrote a letter to the Pope complaining about the gay United States ambassador to the Dominican Republic.
And what did the Pope have to say?
The Pope has been silent so far, but the president of the Dominican Republic says that his ambassador to the Vatican was not authorized to say bad things about the U.S. ambassador.
Well, but to all of you who say that this Pope is a breath of fresh air, all this stuff has been happening, for instance, in Uganda with a very Catholic population. We could talk about a lot of other places, and we hear nothing. He never stands up for us.
Exactly. And it
Ever,
doesn't.
ever.
He doesn't hesitate to make, no pope has hesitated to make proclamations about the world as a whole. It doesn't even have to be about a Catholic population.
Right. Then there's the Ukraine. You're all watching the horror there in the streets. And of course, the split there is between those who want to look to Russia and those who look to the West. Those who look to Russia are in power at the moment. But politicians who are in power are looking to have a Russian-style anti-gay law there as well.
Well, to me, aside from the horror of what's actually happening, is who's behind it. And the person who's behind it is Putin. In the middle of the Olympics, is directing this violence against dissidents in the Ukraine. This is all at his order. And that he could be so brazen, so shameless, so relentless.
Because nobody stands up to him.
The president of the IOC is in his pocket. Other world leaders are not able to challenge him.
What's Billie Jean King doing over there? She's going to be at the closing ceremonies.
She is. Well, let's do a rundown of what's happening in Russia. I've been extremely disappointed that the athletes have made no statement or sign yet of support for LGBT Russians or Ukrainians or anybody else. Oh, we're just athletes. We train so hard. This is the peak moment of our lives. Oh, please.
The least you could do is complain about the conditions on the.
They did it first. If they don't have the right conditions, then they can't perform at their peak. But they can blast people in Ukraine right next door. I still hold out hope that closing ceremonies on Sunday will bring some sign, but I'm less and less.
We're looking for
encouraged.
a rainbow.
Well, where we got the rainbow this week was on Vladimir Luxuria, who showed a transgender Italian activist,
former member of parliament in Italy.
Correct. And she went to Sochi to act out and act up. There she is with a rainbow fan, a rainbow umbrella.
Well, look at the rings in the background. They all look like a rainbow, too.
Just about.
Why don't they ban them? It's going to make kids homosexual.
It's propaganda. So she was carrying around a rainbow flag with writing in Russian on it saying gay is okay. So she's parading around in the sort of Olympic area, not quite that yet, and saying thank you. So she gets picked up by the cops and taken to...
Driven out of town.
Not yet.
Although that's
the second time.
Oh,
that's the second picture. First day, she gets picked up. She's taken to the police station. She's held for a few hours, finally released. And then the news media turns to the cops and says, so, what's the deal? Why'd you pick her up? We have no record of her detention. We don't know what you're talking about.
I know nothing.
So the second day, she goes out again, and now you can put up the second picture. She's in a rainbow headdress now, and she's walking around the square outside the Olympic facilities yelling, gay's okay, it's okay to be gay. And she does that for a couple of hours. And the tourists are coming up and having their pictures taken with her. And everybody's very happy, and it's all lovely rainbows. And then she tries to go to a hockey game for which she has a ticket. And 4 plainclothes cops, and you see a couple of them in the front there, grab her, throw her in a car, which has IOC logos on it, and drive her out to the countryside and dump her.
Now, what's more likely to turn kids into homosexuals? That fright wig that she's got on with the rainbows on it, or those hot athletes in those skimpy outfits?
Oh, my God. Talk about homoeroticism. Well, this is the thing about the NFL, too. There's so much homoeroticism already.
Patting on the butt and everything, and
the
hugging each other and bumping each other.
So when a real gay guy comes along and is...
They're terrified. They're not, though.
But
they surveyed the players. We're going to get to that.
Of course they're not terrified, but what it does is it confronts the homoeroticism that's there with the reality of gayness, and that's really going to throw them for a loop. Anyway, more on that in a moment.
Well, we love you, Vladimir Luxuria.
It's Stonewall again.
This is the only one who has really done something other than Pussy Riot.
It takes a transgender activist to go out in public with the rainbow colors and confront people on this. None of the athletes, none of the spectators, none of the officials, no Brian Boitano, none of that.
So the other ones who demonstrated essentially were Pussy Riot.
Yep.
And they sang some songs, including with the lyrics, "The gay parade has been sent to the outhouse," was one of their lines. But they get detained a couple of times. I do have to say, though, here in the United States...
They were accused of stealing.
Yes. Yeah, I know, theft from their... Yeah. But
they said they were walking around Sochi.
These women were in prison for like almost 2 years or 18 months or something like that.
A couple of them.
Here in the United States, and I don't want to overlook her, Sister Megan Rice, 84, was sentenced to 35 months in prison for breaking into a U.S. nuclear weapons plant and daubing it with human blood and biblical references. I don't see how that's essentially different from what Pussy Riot did in that church, and she's going to get 35 months for this. She's a peacenik.
Exactly, and when the cops showed up to grab her and her cohorts,
they're getting 62 months.
They offered them food. And sang hymns, I think.
But back in Russia...
Well, the IOC was asked about the detention of Vladimir Luxuria, who, by the way, was escorted to a plane after her second detention and thrown out of the country. And they said, that's fine. She was attempting to hold a political demonstration on Olympic territory.
Well, this is the thing. Our mere existence seems to be a political statement.
Exactly.
We're going through the same thing in New York over the St. Patrick's Day parade. We don't hate gay people, but you can't have a sign that says you're part of a gay group, as if that...
You can't be gay and Irish.
Right. So we're dealing with that. But nevertheless, St. Petersburg is bidding for the 2024 Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
No, unless things have changed radically over there.
All right, a few headlines from Russia. The Prime Minister, Medvedev, who keeps flipping jobs with Putin, he's the former president, he signed a new law on no adoptions by gay people or unmarried people of Russian orphans from countries that okay gay marriage. So forget it if you want to adopt any Russian orphans. And there are read my own handwriting, at least 1,000, maybe it says 11,000 a year by the U.S.
Wow. And a little ray of hope out of Russia is the fact that they're going to have the Open Games there, a gay sports festival scheduled 3 days after Sochi, February 26th to March 2nd in Moscow. 200 athletes from 8 countries. The organizer is Konstantin Yablonsky, who's a figure skater who won at the Gay Games in 2010, wants to show that we're normal and healthy, not sodomists, which of course we are.
I suspect there will be a news blackout in Russia on that, because that, of course, would be propaganda. I will compliment some of the news organizations here. ABC News did an excellent piece on the violence against gay people and what is happening still at the Central Station bar in Moscow. They covered the whole history of the attacks there and the morality police who are cracking down. And in fact, 15 thugs did another attack on Central Station. Cops stood by and did nothing. It's happening. It's relentless. Now, one of the things has been...
I have some...
No, I just swallowed wrong.
Okay.
One of the real problems has been the sort of neo-Nazi thugs who entice gay men online and then
post the videos and humiliate the gay people who then have to flee. They don't get arrested generally, or not.
It turns out that I think one ringleader's been arrested. That's it. Instagram and Facebook were sites that were allowing the posting of these videos up until now. And finally, a hue and cry was raised, and they have now gotten rid of them. When you think about what gets censored on Facebook, and yet there were all these videos of these thugs beating up gay people in Russia, and that was okay. But there's still this Russian site, VK.com, that is the main place they post all this stuff.
Which apparently New York City and New York State are invested in.
Tangentially. What the story is that New York State and New York City have global depository somethings that are financial investments in Megaphone, which is a big telecommunications company in Russia, which is owned and controlled by one of their big oligarchs who also owns and controls VK.com. So now the request from Queer Nation is that the state and city use their influence with him through their investments to get him to get VK.com take down these
Why doesn't Comcast
videos.
buy them instead of Time Warner? We're about to be
Excellent
taken over
idea.
by Comcast.
Excellent idea. And, then there's the environmentalist who's in prison for 3 years, had his assets frozen. The IOC doesn't care about that. The father of the out lesbian Australian snowboarder, Belle Brockhoff, says she's getting hate tweets
I know, I read them.
simply because she's been identified as a lesbian, and that the Australian team is discriminating against her and giving her less access to training facilities. The lesbian speed skater from the Netherlands has now won 3 medals. She's the one who cozied up to Putin.
Yeah. Pays, I guess.
Yeah, more to come from Russia. It's the main deal is that the IOC puts out all these morality values and then doesn't follow up on them because they're in bed with the monsters, and Putin is just doing whatever he wants.
Right.
All right. Oh, and one more international story. The editor of the major lesbian magazine in Taiwan has come out as a lesbian.
And we'll
Okay.
keep you posted who on the cast of Looking comes out, because they're not all gay.
She said this as she was lobbying.
Well, they're not
for-
all out. Some of them are not gay.
She was lobbying for legalization of marriage same-sex marriage in Taiwan, and she is the daughter of a major publishing family, so this is a big deal. But welcome.
Okay.
Okay, back to the United States.
Well, I think we should start with the horror story in Kansas that has a happy ending,
Okay.
or semi-happy ending. Kansas, of course, is really gone off the cliff in terms of being right-wing.
Governor Sam Brownback.
I mean, they are just passing all kinds of horrible legislation there that's hurting workers and women and everything. But, so when a bill came along, and these bills come, by the way, from the American Religious Freedom Program, which writes these things, gives them to these right-wingers, and they just pass them. They don't even read them.
Happening in legislatures all over the country.
So here's a bill that was passed 72-49 to exempt any person or religious entity with a, quote, sincere religious belief from any prosecution if they refuse, now this is again a quote, to provide to gay couples any services, accommodations, advantages, facilities, goods, privileges. I mean, how are you supposed to eat? You know, I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. It means government employees can refuse them. Everybody can refuse them.
There's some debate about how this law would have worked. The people who passed it claim it was only meant to protect people from having to
Bake a cake in a bakery for a same-sex wedding.
But those who looked at it closely said, "Are you kidding? This means EMTs don't have to treat gay people. Gay people can be refused service at any public accommodation, any government service."
So the semi-happy ending is that the Senate Republicans of the state took a look at this. Business concerns went nuts over this and said, wait a minute.
Well, you know why they
worried
went
about
nuts?
litigation.
No, here's why they went nuts.
They did.
Because the law said if you don't provide the services, you have to find, if one of your employees
You have to
won't
find a gay lover.
You have to find
a gay lover.
someone else who will provide the service. And they didn't want to have to do that. That was their big objection.
Well, anyway, there was a big protest at the State House about this. 250 people came out about it.
In Topeka.
And so the bill has been sidelined and withdrawn.
Yeah.
That's in Kansas, but that's not the end of the story.
Well, there's also some good news. Do you have more on Kansas? No. In Maine, there was a similar bill proposed, and it was defeated in the Senate. In Tennessee, The bill has a similar bill withdrawn.
We're calling these the Turn Away the Gays bill.
Tennessee has withdrawn its version of the
Well,
bill.
in that case, the celebrity chef Kelly English challenged the chief sponsor because she lives in his district, and he took his name off the bill, and that didn't stop the bill. So she says, I'm still going after him. But you're saying the bill's withdrawn.
The information I have is that the bill has been withdrawn.
Okay.
And in South Dakota, there were similar bills, plural, and some were defeated and some have been withdrawn.
And don't forget, in much more liberal Oregon, there's a ballot measure that would essentially do this. That could come up along with the ballot measure to legalize same-sex marriage.
But here's my question, to which I think I know the answer, but I'll let you supply it. Many of these states do not have non-discrimination laws that include sexual orientation or gender identity and expression. Aren't businesses and government entities and whatever in these states free to discriminate? We talk about people who are subject to losing their jobs or their homes or whatever because there is no protection.
I don't think when you call an ambulance that they can, refuse you if you're hurt and those kinds of things under any law in the land.
Even if you have a strong religious
to what?
objection?
See, that's the thing. Now, this gets to it. What is the religious objection that you have? I mean, there is even
people cite biblical verses that say gay people should be killed. So if you're an ambulance driver and you believe in that, maybe you don't think you should save a gay person.
You're right. But I'm saying most religions teach, even the ones that have that horrible thing in their Bible, teach that we don't hate gay people. We hate what they do. We just want to discriminate against what they do, not who they are. So if you don't care about who we are, you should be able to provide us equal service and everything else.
I'm just saying it's not easy anywhere.
It's not.
No, but I would like to believe that federal law, equal protection laws, will protect us.
And our national gay groups have bought into a version of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act that includes a very broad religious exemption, which sanctifies a lot of this discrimination. It doesn't go this far. It just basically says if you have a remote religious connection to an institution, like a hospital or something like that, you can discriminate against gay people, which is bad. So we've got to stop that if we're going to stop all these other things. And because this is the wave of the future. We keep saying, they're losing. They're finding other ways to get us.
Reproductive rights activists thought we had won.
And we got to get to work on that.
Exactly.
In Idaho, the bill there, where they also have no sexual orientation and gender identity protection statewide, but they're working for it, to exempt religious service providers from having to violate their beliefs.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, a couple dozen activists got arrested in Idaho blocking access to the Senate because they're trying to promote a non-discrimination bill there. And then the next week, a few more people showed up and did a similar demonstration. Last week, 65 demonstrators. Monday, this week, 200 demonstrators showed up. This is a growing, ongoing movement in Idaho to pass a non-discrimination bill.
Grassroots, that's how it happens.
And to fight the religious exemptions bill.
It took us 15 years here in New York City.
Exactly.
And with a lot of demonstrations over the years.
And now some couples in Idaho, some same-sex couples, are suing for marriage.
And speaking of New York City, we've sometimes criticized our new mayor. We wish that he would not let police march in uniform in the St. Patrick's Day parade, even though he's not marching himself. But his budget came out this week, and he did add $1.5 million now and $2.5 million next year to runaway and homeless youth, which is good. And also is supporting this 30%. Did we already talk about the 30% rent cap?
We may have mentioned it. I have it down under AIDS News, so we'll get to that. But on the beds for homeless youth, they've added 76 beds with this money. But as our colleague Kate Barnhart points out, who runs a program for homeless youth, they cap the age for these beds at 21, and really they need a few more years of ability to shelter these youth because they're really not on their feet by 21. So that needs to be paid attention to, too. Some more good news from the U.S. The Washington State House of Representatives, 94-4, passed a bill forbidding conversion therapy for minors. That seems to be a new tack people are taking.
And in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, the city council unanimously passed a resolution to include LGBT folks in their policy on diversity. It's the second city in Mississippi to do it. Starkville passed one in January.
We've obviously been talking for the last week or two about Michael Sam, the University of Missouri football player who has come out and who is going to the Combine this weekend, I think, to play for NFL
You have to tell them
scouts.
what the Combine is. They're not
you
all
play
sports
for
fans.
all the football players who are trying to get into the NFL show up at this one place for the weekend, and they play, and all the scouts of all the teams
It's
come
like
together
that
and
scene in A League of Their Own. Remember when they all come and they're trying out? Yeah, in front of everybody.
It was a long time ago.
Yes.
So he showed up at a University of Missouri basketball game. The football team, which had won the Cotton Bowl, came in at halftime at the basketball game and hoisted the trophy and everything. Standing O from the fans at the school. They're all very proud of him. The student body president at the University of Missouri came out in a tweet.
Wow. Plus, the Westboro Baptist Church is not too far away. The God Hates Fags Ministries there from the Phelps family, they, of course, showed up to protest. So the Mizzou students formed a human wall to block them from being seen. It was quite moving.
Yes, hundreds of students standing in the street for those 5 or 6 Westboro people.
And early on in this controversy, there was the commentary of a sportscaster in Texas named Dale Hansen, who
Dallas guy at the ABC affiliate there.
And we want to show you what he had to say.
It's gone viral. Millions of people have watched
Now
this
you
because
can.
it's so popular. Let's take a look.
It was quite a weekend. That little dust up in Lubbock Saturday night. And then yesterday, Missouri's All-American defensive end Michael Sam, the SEC's Defensive Player of the Year and expected to be a 3rd to 5th round pick in the NFL draft, tells the world he's gay. The best defensive player in college football's best conference, only a 3rd to 5th round NFL pick? Really? That is shocking. And I guess that other thing is too. Michael Sam would be the first openly gay player in the NFL, says he knows there will be problems and they've already started. Several NFL officials telling Sports Illustrated it will hurt him on draft day because a gay player wouldn't be welcome in an NFL locker room. It would be uncomfortable because that's a man's world. You beat a woman and drag her down a flight of stairs, pulling her hair out by the roots, you're the 4th guy taken in the NFL draft. You kill people while driving drunk, that guy's welcome. Players caught in hotel rooms with illegal drugs and prostitutes, we know they're welcome. Players accused of rape and pay the woman to go away. You lie to police trying to cover up a murder, we're comfortable with that. You love another man, well, now you've gone too far. It wasn't that long ago when we were being told that black players couldn't play in our games because it would be uncomfortable. And even when they finally could, it took several more years before a black man played quarterback because we weren't comfortable with that either. So many of the same people who used to make that argument, and the many who still do, are the same people who say government should stay out of our lives, but then want government in our bedrooms. I've never understood how they feel comfortable laying claim to both sides of that argument. I'm not always comfortable when a man tells me he's gay. I don't understand his world, but I do understand that he's part of mine. Civil rights activist Audre Lorde said, "It is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." We've always been able to recognize them, some of us accept them, and I want to believe that there will be a day when we do celebrate them. I don't know if that day's here yet, I guess we're about to find out. But when I listen to Michael Sam, I do think it's time to celebrate him now.
Wonderful. How many Texas sportscasters can quote Audre Lorde? How many sportscasters, period?
Excellent.
Wonderful.
And the Missouri legislature has been moved enough by all of this to consider again, for about the 10th year, a non-discrimination law that would cover the state, including sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. So we'll see whether this puts them over the top finally on that.
Now, ESPN, the sports network, did an anonymous survey of NFL players and found that 86% don't care if they have a gay teammate. But they're split on whether a gay player could be comfortable in their locker rooms. Most say players and coaches use anti-gay slurs.
Well, you have the other side of this story is the big report that came out this week on the Miami Dolphins and the bullying in their locker room, which turns out to be 10 times worse than had even been reported.
Is it really necessary, boys, to do that in order to win your games?
Racism, sexism, homophobia, really ugly, relentless, horrible stuff. And it vindicated Jonathan Martin, which I thought was really important because, you know, we certainly assumed that there were things said to him, but you had to kind of wonder, really bad enough to walk away from the team? And this report really lays it out and really makes you understand how bad it could be.
Okay.
So we'll see whether, I'd like to think that Michael Sam, here's what I think. I think the report coming out on Miami makes it more likely that NFL teams will be looking to draft Michael Sam because they're going to be looking to signal that they are not the way the Dolphins are or are not willing to put up with that kind of behavior anymore. Right. So I think that helps him.
Now, in Chattanooga, we told you that a gay councilman there, Chris Anderson, was subject to a recall because he stood up for gay rights, and he's out gay. Well, they got the 1,600 signatures necessary for the November ballot, so Chattanooga is going to be quite the scene of a civil rights battle to hold on to this guy.
Quite a bit of notice last week when Facebook decided that they would start offering a much wider range of gender identities for people to use on their Facebook IDs. So it's now, you know, it's over 50 as opposed to 2.
Now let's go to Seattle. We told you about that arson fire there. I guess it was on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day at a gay club there. Somebody spilled gasoline on the stairwell of a 2-tier club, lit it, you know, and two gay soldiers, I think they were, put it out and saved hundreds of lives.
Yes.
It could have been like a thing called Happy Land in New York where that many people were killed. Anyway, so a suspect was arrested. His name is Musab Mazmari, 30. He allegedly told a friend that, quote, homosexuals should be exterminated. Thank goodness his friend went to the FBI. He believed that Musmari planned another attack with a rifle. He's being held on $1 million bail. And
there is actual surveillance video of him in the club carrying around the jug of gasoline.
I think he might have done it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he would be comfortable in Gambia. Again, pencil and paper, this coming Monday, the 24th at 10:30 a.m. in Philadelphia, the ribbon-cutting ceremony to officially open the John C. Anderson Apartments, the LGBT-friendly senior living facility. There are already people living there. They've started moving in, and the ceremony will feature some of those residents. A lot of politicians, Ed Rendell. And
those are old pal Mark Siegel, who is the head of the Philadelphia Gay News, the editor there, who put this together with others, of course.
And there'll be a lot of pioneer activists, and there were a lot in Philadelphia.
Are they going to
live there? I'm sure some will. At any rate, this is on South 13th Street in Philadelphia, 249-257 South 13th Street, Monday at 10:30 a.m.
Yep.
And we're happy to hear the update from Hale Center, Texas, where 16-year-old out bisexual Sierra Wood, who'd spoken up for same-sex marriage in a class, been kicked out of the classroom, said, "Sup?" to someone in the hallway and been accused of gang language and suspended from the school. And then her sister, who defended her, was threatened with jail time for not making her go back to school. She has been accepted in a homeschool program, and the sister is not going to jail.
Hooray.
Yes. So congratulations to everybody there, and best of luck, Sierra, and your sister.
Okay.
Depressing study out of Yale. They got information on 5,000 LGBT faculty members from universities across the United States, and these numbers show, almost unbelievably to me, 11% are out. 11%.
Does that mean out to their students?
It just said out. And of those 11% who are out, 94% say they're uncomfortable in the university setting sometimes.
Terrible.
Very terrible.
And you can imagine what the statistics are in elementary and high schools.
Yeah, and someone who has just come out and was a little nervous about it, but good for her for coming out, is the young actress Ellen Page, 26, 27, star of Juno.
Yep. And many other things.
She appeared at a Human Rights Campaign new conference called Time to Thrive, which is a youth conference, and she was there to talk about it. And she decided in the middle of her speech to come out. So we will show you a little bit of that. You can see more on the HRC website.
And I'm inspired to be in this room because every single one of you is here for the same reason. You're here because you've adopted as a core motivation the simple fact that this world would be a whole lot better if we just made an effort to be less horrible to one another. If we took just 5 minutes to recognize each other's beauty instead of attacking each other for our differences, that's not hard. It's really an easier and better way to live. And ultimately, it saves lives. Then again, it can be the hardest thing. Because loving other people starts with loving ourselves and accepting ourselves. And I know many of you have struggled with this. And I draw upon your strength and your support in ways that you will never know. And I am here today because I am gay. And because thank you. And because maybe I can make a difference to help others have an easier and more hopeful time.
Thank you very much,
I
Ellen.
feel-
And you can watch that whole thing online. It's about 6 minutes if you want to watch her whole speech.
8.
8 minutes. Okay.
Well, she took a while to get into it.
Yeah, she
All
warmed
right.
us up.
Well, let's not us take a while to get into marriage because we're running down on time.
The big news was from Virginia, where a federal judge ruled that the right to marry is a fundamental right, and the defendants, the state, failed to meet strict scrutiny on the issue. The judge also wrote that the ban does not meet rational basis. How does it feel to be told that you're not rational, our opponents?
The judge is terrific. She's an African-American woman appointed by Obama. She started her decision by quoting Mildred Loving, who had benefited from the Loving versus Virginia case, who said later in her life, "I support the freedom to marry for all."
It's one of the only public issues she spoke out on.
Exactly. And then at the end of her decision, she quotes Abraham Lincoln.
Well, this decision was stayed, so you can't get married in Virginia right now. Art Leonard, our legal expert, thinks it will stand up in the Fourth Circuit. The only appellants are the county clerks because the state is not defending this anti-gay law.
And there's
this anti-gay unconstitutional law.
There is another case in Virginia that is still up for decision because Virginia actually is split into 2 different circuits.
Right.
So this implicates all sorts of different
We got
things.
more than one circuit here in the city, I think.
Well,
anyway.
we got to get to the
All right,
Supreme
Indiana,
Court.
the Senate passed 32-17, the amended version of the constitutional ban on same-sex marriage, also dropping the ban on domestic partnerships to the consternation of the far right, and
the governor.
And that delays any possible vote until 2016, and by that time, everybody's going to be able to get married everywhere in this country, and we're going to have to work on Africa.
A new case in Alabama where a guy named Paul Hard was married to his husband in Massachusetts, and then they lived in Alabama. The husband was killed by a truck. Paul was not allowed to see him in the hospital, and he died. He could see him after he was dead, and was not allowed to collect in a wrongful death suit. So the Southern Poverty Law Center is now representing him in a suit against Alabama for recognition of the Massachusetts marriage.
Attention if you live in Washington State. If you are in a domestic partnership, the state will convert that to a marriage automatically if you don't do so on your own or get a legal dissolution. It
June
affects
30th.
thousands, 6,500 couples. This happened in Connecticut and New Hampshire. California retained civil unions, as did New York City.
And if you are a senior couple, gay or straight in Washington State, you can stay as domestic partners. In Idaho, new lawsuit by same-sex couples for marriage. In Ohio, a couple married in New York is suing for access to federal health care. They've been rejected by the health care, the new system, because they were married in New York and are not recognized in Ohio.
In Michigan, Governor Rick Snyder, who's a Republican, appealed the ruling against the state's ban on domestic partnerships, said the policies that disfavor familial relationships are absurd, unfair, and ridiculous. Like you, Governor Snyder.
We've told you about the pending Nevada case in the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit has now agreed to expedite the appeal of the Nevada case and has allowed the governor of Nevada and the attorney general to withdraw from the case.
In Texas, a federal judge heard the case on same-sex marriage in San Antonio. No immediate ruling.
Interesting case in Texas. We've been following for years the case of the transgender woman, Nikki Araguz, who was married to a man. He died.
A firefighter, yeah.
She was supposed to inherit or get death benefits. His family got her ruled out as a beneficiary because they got a Texas court to rule she was actually a man and therefore the marriage was not legal, blah, blah, blah.
She does have a California birth certificate that was changed to female.
And the Texas appeal court has now overturned the earlier summary judgment against her and says that this must go to a full trial and she does have rights.
In Kentucky, 2 additional couples are now suing, now that the judges ruled that legal marriages from elsewhere must be recognized. They want the whole ban on same-sex marriage lifted, not just the one for people who come in from out of state.
In Wyoming, the House rejected a marriage bill, but they also rejected a bill that would have denied recognition of out-of-state marriages. So things are still up in the air there.
2 same-sex couples from Buncombe County, North Carolina, went to record their legal marriages at the Register of Deeds, part of the We Do campaign of Southern Equality. It doesn't grant them legal rights to file it, but it shows that they are there and committed to each other.
Great. In Colorado, the House and Senate have passed a bill that same-sex couples married in other states can file taxes as married couples in Colorado, even though the state doesn't recognize their marriages.
And there's a case in Missouri.
We just showed you Ellen Page coming out. She has a new movie role as Stacey Andre in the new movie of Freeheld, which is dear to our hearts because Cynthia Wade, who directed it and won an Oscar for it as a short documentary, you see her in our opening credits holding an Oscar. She's a co-producer of this new feature film that's going to be made starring Julianne Moore as Laurel Hester, the cop who died.
And Zach
Galifianakis
is going to play our old buddy Stephen Goldstein, the New Jersey gay activist.
That'll be interesting.
Yes.
All right. AIDS news, yes. Cuomo, New York State Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio of New York have agreed on this rent cap for people living with AIDS on public assistance. No more than 30% of their income can be taken for rent. New study on, new resource manual published helping families to support their lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender children. That's a good thing. And new episode of Mark Milano's Living with HIV next Wednesday. Understanding lab reports. Call ACREA in New York for information on that. And entertainment news. I'm rushing because I want to show you the new out lesbian on American Idol who made the top 10 women. MK Nobilette. You'll hear her singing a little and then get the verdict on her being a finalist.
Lights gone, days end, struggling to pay the rent. Long nights, strange men. And they say she's in the Class A team, stuck in her daydream. Been this way since 18, but lately her face seems slowly sinking, wasting, crumbling like pastries. And they scream the worst things in life come free to us, 'cause we're all under the upper hand. Go mad for a couple grams. She don't wanna go.
Something about the way she delivers the song really gives me goosebumps.
Then I'm with you. She flies to the motherland, goes mad for a couple grams.
She's like a quiet
She don't
storm.
wanna go.
She's serious too, but it's interesting serious.
Yeah.
Fly.
I think with you it was kind of difficult because we all kind of fell in love with your voice and your style, but you're not the typical American Idol.
No, I'm not.
You know?
And we wonder, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Do we think it? What will America think? And all of these questions start coming up. How do you fit in? Do you not fit in?
I have my own thoughts on that too, yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I'm very obviously gay. And there are always gonna be people in America and everywhere else who are definitely gonna hate. But I think that in the last 2 years, there have been a lot of things that have really changed that and have really made it a positive thing.
Thank goodness.
This is a tough day. The world is changing, I think. We think
Strongly.
that you could be an American Idol. And we'd like you to be in our top 15 girls.
You have a great voice, MK.
Thank you so much.
You belong here.
Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome, baby.
Can I hug
Congratulations,
you guys? Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
shocking they haven't had an out contestant, but now they do.
Well, not too many people came out to see Bike Man, a 9/11 play on a snowy night. There were about 20 people in the audience. There's the picture. That's Robert Cuccioli, who was in Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there annoyed that it's a horrible night and all this kind of stuff. And it's a sort of a poetic play by a CBS newsman who wrote about his experiences taking his bike down to the towers. And I was actually, and it was in kind of, stylized language. It was so intense. It brought you down there. It's something we don't like to think about a lot. So I highly recommend Bike Man by Tom Flynn down there at BMC, Borough Manhattan Community College. A little less so on Love and Information by Carol Churchill, which has some very good acting in it. It's about just what it says, love and information, but it's 2 hours, no intermission.
Okay.
Very tough.
And that's all the news this week. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.